So you play on artificial grass, or AG, but did you actually know that it's a really good idea to use AG-specific boots instead of your normal FG boots that you use on normal grass in order to protect your joints and your knees and minimize the risk of injury? Well, if you didn't know, now you know. And it is a really good idea to at least think about. So in today's video, I'm gonna give you my personal top 5 list of the best boots to use on artificial grass that you can buy on Unisport right up there in 2023. And what I'm looking for today is, of course, the performance, how the boot grips and moves in the artificial grass, but especially also on safety and on minimizing the risk of injury. So let's do it. And we start out with our American friends from New Balance, and more specifically their Furon V7 Pro in AG, where you get I would say a relatively straightforward, no-nonsense AG option with these relatively large, hollowed-out conical studs. And that's a solid option because they offer this freedom and rotational maneuverability that you will be looking for in a pair of AG boots, because it makes sure that you twist and turn more freely in the ground, thus minimizing the risk, at least, of twisting your joints and your knees. And that's where most of the injuries come from. And sure, the studs are on the larger side, so they don't feel as if they will penetrate the ground as easily as some of the other boots on the list. But on the other hand, they offer this really nice stability and the feel of having a very balanced grip in the ground. Also, actually, the boots are a little bit wider than the FG model, which is nice and really comfortable. And I'd say that for the money, it's a really solid option, especially if you're looking for an AG speed boot. But in fourth place, I cheated a little bit, didn't I? I brought 2 boots, and that's one, because I couldn't decide between the Phantom GX and the Mercurial, but also 2 because, well, yeah, the outsoles are different, but the studs themselves, which is the important stuff, they are really similar. And here we're still talking about these hollowed out conical studs, just like on the Furon. But unlike on the Furon, they are slightly longer and they have a smaller circumference. And that means that they penetrate the ground ever so slightly more, and thus feels a bit more like what you know from your FG boots. But because they have this rotational freedom, they also give the impression of being ever so slightly more gentle, especially on the Mercurial that has bladed studs on the FG version. The cool thing is that you can actually also use this on FG pitches if you prefer a slightly, should we say, a little bit more gentle experience with that rotational maneuverability. And I would say that if I have to choose between the two, and I probably have to, I'd go with the GXs because they have conical studs all over instead of just, 3-bladed studs. But I also really like that Zoom Air unit on the Mercurial, which offers this slightly soft and bouncy feel that at least gives me the impression that it takes away a bit of that hardness you feel when you run on an AG pitch. So they are definitely the more FG-oriented boots on the list, I would say, and definitely also work better on newer artificial pitches like 4G and 5G pitches, but they're really great and I enjoy them both. But for third place, I brought a bit of a surprise, a dark horse you could say, because we've actually taken a few steps down the price ladder and have the Mizuno Morelli Neo 3 Pro, and it's supremely well-balanced AG outsole where you get 14 main studs and 7 support studs, which means that you actually distribute the pressure point on each stud out over a larger surface area. And that in turn means that when you step in the ground and the stud starts to penetrate, you have less pressure on each stud. And that in turn minimizes the risk of the studs, and thus the boots, getting stuck in the ground while your leg keeps moving and something ends up snapping. So it's a really nice outsole, and yeah, you can feel that it is a lower price point. But I would say that when we talk value for money, you're not really gonna find anything better. And I think the outsole itself, safety-wise at least, is better than the Mercs and the Phantoms and the Furons. And it's a lot cheaper. Actually, I like the AG outsole on the Legend 9s just a little bit more. And in my book, this is by far the best AG outsole that Nike are offering at the moment. Because sure, you only get 17 studs. But the 17 studs that you're getting are once again these smaller, hollowed out circular studs that are also ever so slightly shorter. They feel really nice and small, but they still penetrate the ground well. And that means that you get this vibe of having the, well, to some extent at least, the grip that you would get in an FG pair of boots, but without that aggressiveness that you would get from an FG boot. And that means that, especially because of the 6 front studs here, that when I get on my toes and you do all these little changes of direction, it brings me confidence because I feel there's grip enough that the boots aren't slipping and I'm gonna fall over, but I never really, they don't feel risky. And at the same time, I love how I can just put the boots into extreme situations and change direction without them ever feeling like they're gonna get seriously stuck and me ending up like this. Because that sucks. So a wonderfully balanced boot, and the Legend 9 on top isn't bad either, so it's a great package. But before we get to number 1, I also just want to, well, it's not an honorable mention, but I just want to mention that if you must use FG boots on AG pitches, well, you shouldn't because it's more risky and you lose your warranty, but if you must, make sure that it's a pair with conical studs. We've talked about this rotational maneuverability with conical studs, and with bladed studs, it's just more risky and frankly a little bit like playing with fire. I've seen some really nasty injuries from people wearing blades. So try to avoid that. And that brings me to another thing, because where's Adidas on this list? Well, spoiler alert, they're not number 1 either. And that's because, well, let me paint you an example here. This is the X-Speed Portal FG. This is the X-Speed Portal AG. Now, the only difference here is that there's an extra stud on the outside of the forefoot on the AG version. So technically, it's the same outsole as the FG version, just with another, by the way, a triangular bladed stud. That doesn't make it good for AG, Adidas. And I know they've been decent in the past with their AG plates, but on the X-Speed Portal and the edge and the accuracy, it's just the FG plate. And I don't think that's good enough. So I just wanted to bring it up. Something you should know. So for AG, I wouldn't go at it. Thankfully, Adidas's neighbors know how to make a great AG-specific outsole. And okay, the Puma Future Ultimate is called MG for multi-ground instead, but it doesn't really matter because what you get here are 24 little conical studs, which again ensure that even distribution of the pressure points, and also because the studs are so small and there are so many of them, they also ensure that they penetrate the ground in so many different places that you get enough grip, but also they don't dig so deep that you risk getting stuck. And it's just such a wonderfully balanced sensation where you get the impression that the boots have actually been specifically made and optimized for playing on artificial grass. And in my book, this is just the best combination of performance and minimizing the risk of injury that you can get out there. It's the same on the Ultra, by the way, but Futures are just feel ever so slightly nicer because of the lockdown that you get in these. So in my book, this is the best. So does that mean that the only right option is to buy the Puma MG boots? Well, I mean, they're fantastic boots, but obviously not. All the boots on the table, and in general, most AG boots, bar the Adidas ones, are great options for artificial grass. I mean, I regularly wear my Mercurials and my Phantom GXs because they're just great boots and they still feel good on AG. And I would say that the rule of thumb, if you want AG boots, should be to get conical studs. The shorter the studs are, the better, and the more studs you have, well, the lower the risk of injuries is going to be. But guys, which of these boots would you choose to wear on an AG pitch? And be honest here, do you even wear AG boots on artificial grass? Well, let me know in the comment section right down below, and well, if you don't, go get yourself a pair of AG boots in the link to Unisport right over there. Of course, also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel with the notifications on, and go check out the playlist right down there if you like learning new cool skills. And with those words, guys, I'll be signing off. Cheerio.